Welcome to Community Watch. And today we have the Rome legendary storyteller, Gary Mitchum Reeves. Stay tuned. Community Watch starts now.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg, how are you?
Good brother, I'm doing well. And yourself?
Well, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's always good to see you. We'll get back into a studio one day, maybe.
Maybe. But this does allow us to talk to a wider range of people.
It does. So there's some benefits.
True.
And today, I would say, is one of the more popular guests we've had in quite some time back on the show. And so we are very happy to welcome back Gary Mitchum Reeves to talk with us. Mitchum, welcome back.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I've missed you fellas.
Well, I know are already aware, but you have a pretty sizable fan club out there.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, it's good to hear. Yes.
Well, if there are a couple of folks who are unfamiliar, Mitchum is a podcast star, I think you could say. We those of us who listen to podcasts met him first on the Undisclosed podcast, which featured a story about his having served time for a murder that he did not commit, and he's trying to clear his name of that, although he has already served the time. And since that, he has had his own podcast, which is Mitchum, with stories about those same events, but also many others. And if you have listened to some or all of those podcasts, you already know that Mitchum is a storyteller of amazing gifts. So we are very happy to have you back. And those podcasts, both of them, are still available through wherever you get your podcast. If you want to look for the Undisclosed podcast season and also Mitchum, they're both still available and you can still listen to them. And I certainly recommend that you look for them because they're really amazing podcasts, I think. Mitchum, I know we had talked previously the last time you were on Community Watch about Rome back in the day, what kind of a town it was like and how it was kind of a Wild West seeming kind of town once upon a time, and how hard that might be for folks who live in Rome today to imagine. And one of the things that you talked about was the number of little beer joints, and I guess they all at the time, and you'll have to help with the details here. At the time, they were officially beer joints, but they served other things as well. Is that correct?
Uh, yeah, they were beer joints, and most of them, that's what they stuck with. There was some of them that some of the places would pour you a little something stronger if they knew you well, and you could also pick up things to go with the back door. But the majority of them was beer joint taverns, and some were worse than others. You know, if you think about it, Rome at that time, we didn't have the malls. Everything was on Broad Street. I mean, that's where all the action was. So me as a kid, man, getting to Broad Street on Saturdays, you had the theaters, DeSoto, First Avenue, Gordon Theater. And then you had, I think there were 5 beer joints on one block, Cotton Block. I don't remember the names of those, all of those. I remember in my time some of them. And so you, to kind of give you a picture of what Rome was like back then, all the action was happening on Broad Street.
And what period of time are we talking about here?
50s. I was in the 50s growing up. And then there was no malls. I mean, it was Broad Street was the action. Early 60s. And you didn't have it was Broad Street. It was a real Broad Street. You didn't have the trees in the middle of the street. You go back and find those pictures of what it looked like back then. But back to the beer joints, they were scattered around. I was trying to find that list when I was doing the podcast. One night I wrote down, all of them started coming back to me in the city and in the county. And I tried to find it again today. I haven't found it. But may I point something out that I did find? This concerns Rome. I found my grandfather Crawford's 1935 tax receipt. He paid 50 cents for taxes. And then he paid 35 cents the second half in 1936. I got that. I wish you could get it.
That was his quarterly or annually?
I don't know. I just found the receipt. Here's 1935, the first half, 1935, and he lived on McLean Street, McLin Street in Rome, 18 North McLean. I think that's up North Rome. So here's where he paid 50 cents in 1935. Then he paid another 50 cents in 35. And then in 36, he paid 35 cents taxes. I also found where they mortgaged a cow. I don't know where that McLean Street is, but it's on the other side of the tracks with my family. We came from the other side of the tracks. We didn't come from the high dollar travel side. I thought that'd be interesting. But back to the beer joints, yes, they were a lot of them. And you never knew what was going to happen in those places. Do you want me to try to name some of those?
Well, sure. I mean, well, the ones that you think are especially memorable. I mean, I guess imagining them on Broad Street is not as strange to me as thinking about them scattered around the county, because that doesn't really exist now.
Well, every county line coming and going out of Floyd County, there would be a county line beer joint. Alabama Highway had one. Highway 27 South had one. 27 North had one. I mean, every direction there was a county line beer joint. But in the city, there was one called the South Rome Barbecue. I just have to tell this stuff as it gets. So the South Rome Barbecue was well known. And it's on now what they call Cave Spring Street. That would have been part of Old 27. When you leave the South Broad, there's a red light there. You're coming down South Broad. Now you would make a right on Cave Spring Road, which was Old 27. And down that way, a little ways on the left, where the Anchor Duck Cotton Mill houses were, they were all there, was the South Rome Barbecue on the left. And my cousin Ofer learned something in that place. Never start a fight with an ugly man. He,
I think you're going to have to explain that one a little bit.
Well, there's a big guy. He was a big guy. My cousin was a little fella. And they had an old-timey shuffleboard in there with the Rawson and the, and that was a popular game the day. And Ofer got into an argument with him, and cousin Ofer. I do some stories on the podcast about him. Well, he just got a lucky punch, and he hit the guy and knocked him under that shuffleboard. And man, the guy was pretty well knocked cold. He should have let it go, but he didn't. So we got out. He kept saying, "Get on up, wake up. I'm gonna go outside and jar the ground with you." Well, the guy kind of come to when he did that. He come to his senses, got outside. Ofer jarred the ground with him. The guy like beat him to death. And so I said, never start a fight with an ugly big man. And there was another guy that hung out in there, real tall guy. Well, he was the lookout man for the cops. He could see all the way back. He was that tall. He could see all the way back up to the red light there where the cops would set up that way some way. So when folks got ready to leave, he'd look out that way, and he could see if they were sitting. Actually, he could see if they were sitting in any direction. But it was the city police that most of the time that you dealt with back then. So he was the lookout man. Still the lookout man at Pearl Harbor. He was the lookout man himself from work. A lot of fights would happen there. It's just people you never knew. And of course, the lady that owned it, she would bar people if they started a fight. She would bar them for a while. My brother Gene got barred there quite often. I tell you the story about Jim Reeves, the singer?
No.
Oh,
Okay. I was a guy, Charlie Causey, loved Jim Reeves. We all like Jim Reeves, And I'd like to think he was kin to him. We kind of believe we were kin. I found something about that. That's another story. But supposedly he was in the area doing a show, and Charlie Causey loved Jim Reeves, and he just heard the Reeves name come up. So Charlie was trying to make points with May, who owned the place, and he went over to May and he said, May said, that's one of the Reeves brothers' cousins. And he's not, he's a troublemaker, if he's kin to them. Story is she ran him out. Because supposedly he was related to us. So I don't, that story was around for a long time.
Now that was at the barbecue.
South Rome Barbecue. Yeah. City, and that's in the city of Rome. So let's see, city of Rome beer joints.
We're coming up on a break, so this is probably a good time to catch you between stories.
Okay, go ahead.
We have another whole segment to go and more storytelling to come, so don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
For 50 years, Georgia Highlands College has been a community that takes charge. At GHC, we have a mission to provide access to an outstanding education, meeting the career needs of the region, and helping our communities thrive. Every student we graduate becomes a celebration we never forget. We are more than Chargers. We are Chargers taking charge for 50 years and beyond.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We are having a conversation with Gary Mitchum Reeves about Rome in Floyd County back in the day, the 1950s primarily and 60s, where a time when there were quite a few bars, beer joints, not only in downtown Rome, but around the county. And Mitchum, you were telling us about some of the places that were particularly memorable to you.
Yeah. Let's go up Highway 27 north this time. And you have the Triple H, well known with very students and people. Now, Hill Haney owned that. Hill was a bootlegger. He had the tavern, but he's also a bootlegger, and he used to run liquor. Had the sharpest 40 Ford convertible in the town, man. And but that place was, they didn't nobody start any trouble with Hill Haney. He sat at the end of the bar, and he had a beautiful blonde lady, and he had people behind the bar running it while they sat there and talked. And I always enjoyed talking with him. Had the best hot dogs in the world, kind of like the Yellow Jacket hot dog. He toasted the bun with the chili and the onions on it. Then across the street was a different world. It was Gordon and Mary's beer joint. That's where I went most of the time. And that's where a friend of mine got shot in Gordon Mary's. Didn't die, but he was messed up the rest of his life. And then on up the road of ways, you had a couple of more, but the one I remember the most was Dixie. And I got into a situation in there one night. Guy pulls a knife on you, and I hated knives, man. If you're gonna fight, just fight or shoot. Just better be shot, cut. But he pulled a knife, and that's a long, sad story, but survived it. Then there was I liked the Dixie too. They had the jukebox was always going good there. Then you had
We're still on 27 North.
yeah, we're still on 27 North. Yeah. I'm just naming the beer joints that I remember. The Dixie, that happened in there. And you know the way my mind goes, and y'all try to help me stay on track, because when I mentioned something, I mentioned the Dixie. Well, then that triggered that incident that night. And there I go getting off track, talking about something else. But the Green Gable, okay, that was a good place. And when Grace and I had Grace's place in 1968, 69, somewhere in there, they had the best steaks up there. So beer joints back then would stay open at 2:00, except on Sundays. You had to close at midnight on Sundays. But we would close early sometimes so we could hurry up and get up to the Green Gable and get us a steak, you know. So that triggered another story. I was in a hurry one night. I had that fast 60 Oldsmobile, and we're flying up McCall Boulevard, and blue light comes on in the grill. And it was one of the good cops. He pulled me over. He knew me. He said, did you know how fast you was going? I said, no, but if I'd have known it was you, I wouldn't have been going that fast. And he said, you know how fast you were going when you passed me a while ago? I said, no, if I'd have known it was you, I wouldn't have passed you. He let me go. He was a good guy. He was a real good guy. He later became he became the warden down at the CI when they opened it up. Tom Keene was his name. Everybody knew Tom Keene. Policeman. He was a good fellow.
Mitchum, I got a question for you. Coming up 27 North, I grew up in Gore, and for years, right over the county line, there was a beer joint. I think it was even drive up. This was when I was young. I just remember people would go there. And I even believe they used to buy alcohol on Sunday, but they had you could walk, they had a drive through. You could actually drive up and get it delivered out, into your car. But this was early 70s, but I can remember that because Floyd County, Chautauqua County is dry. Yeah. So right at the line, they had that beer joint. And it was there for years until it finally closed. But I didn't know if you was familiar with that one, because that was later on, but I didn't know how long that one had been there.
There was one had been there for years. If I'm thinking right, was it like a rock building type?
No, it was. I know it was red. That's the only thing I can remember about it was red, because I never went there, but I knew that's where my granddad and some of the other men went to get alcohol.
I remember that place being there on the, like say right there on the line, kind of. And then of course, once you get on up into Chautauqua County, Lord, that's a lot more stories there. But yeah, that drive-through it seemed like you just drive through there and pretty well get what you wanted. I wish it'll probably come to me after we get through recording this. I'll probably remember more about it. Maybe I'll have some stories the next time about it.
No, it just triggered. I'm like you on this one. When I heard you talking about 27, it just came to mind that as a kid growing up, we just knew there was the beer joint.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because the county was dry, that's where people went.
I had a friend that over on Scats Corner, and back in let's see, we're on 27 North. Let's finish that trip. The Dixie, the Green Gable, and then there was a County Line beer joint, and that may be the one you're talking about. In fact, that was a County Line, wasn't it? Wasn't that a County Line right there?
Yeah, county line.
That was the County Line. I know who owned that thing too. I think his name was Sewell, I believe. It'll come to me later. But yeah, I remember the place. But back in the city of Rome, around Scats Corner, there was a lot of bootleggers there around West 10th and DeSoto Avenue and that area there. And I have a friend who her mother and stepfather were bootleggers, and she remembered sitting on the doorsteps of their house, and there was a beer joint on each end of that street that ended. And there was also a church close by. She could hear the jukebox playing from one beer joint, and she could hear the church music playing from the other end of the beer joint. And she remembered the preacher's kids would walk up and down the street cussing. And a lady told her, said, if anybody needs to be cussing, it should be you. Just another funny story.
You know, I have to ask, because just from a business standpoint, it seems excessive that there were so many little bars and you know, it's scattered all over the county.
Yeah.
How? I mean, there apparently was enough business to keep them all going.
Plenty of business to keep them going. You also had the surrounding counties, like Greg was talking about. Chattooga County was dry, so people from Chattooga County, Polk County was dry. Alabama was dry, but I think Alabama's still dry. Some parts of it, but all the surrounding counties was dry, so plenty of business. And then you had the people that lived in the country. They worked on the farm or whatever they did, and man, they come to town, and they'd usually go to the one that was closest to them, like the Polk County people would come into that area of town there. So there was plenty, and they were all packed on the weekends. And plus you had the ladies that helped a lot.
I'll be honest with you, that's the part that I find fascinating, because when you think of Rome today, I just always have this, I guess Rome just presents really well today. You know, a great family city, a great place to raise children and kids and things of that nature. So when I think of Rome, and then I hear some of your stories, it's just like it's two different places. It's almost like, for me, it's two totally different places. Not that a small town evolved into something else. It just sounds like almost two different places because of the strong Bible Belt kind of image Rome has today.
That's called rose-colored glasses that it's been presented to most of the people today. And a lot of the powers that be or whatever, they don't want this part of Rome talked about that I knew. I tell you, if you want to get a real good picture of it, and there's a retired city policeman, y'all know him very well, and he's a good guy. I like him. He's written some books, and this guy's got some good stories about when he was a policeman walking the beat of Broad Street. I guess it's all right to call his name, Lonnie Adcock, as got a lot of books out there. I love to read some of his stories that he tells about things that he ran into. Check out Lonnie's stories of Rome when he was a policeman. But if you want to see what it looked like and get a good visual aid, and you can get this on probably YouTube or anywhere, the Phoenix City Story. It was filmed in the 50s, and the Dixie Mob was operating there. You could see the beer joints. You can see the ladies walking the streets. They killed the guy, Patterson, that was running for Attorney General. They assassinated him and killed him.
This was in Phoenix City, Alabama.
In Alabama.
Okay.
And it's called the Phoenix City Story. And the good part about it is the first part of the movie, they go in there and interview people that is living there then. They even interview Patterson's widow. And you can see the beer joints, the streetwalkers, all of that is happening. Well, that was Rome. That right there was just like Rome was, downtown, different places of Rome. So Eisenhower had to send the militia in there and shut the thing down. So they just moved on into Rome. A lot of them did, and took right back up where they left off at. It's a true story. You'll recognize some of the actors in it, but what I like about it is you're seeing that history live as it was at that time. I think it was 54, I believe, 1954. Early 50s.
Phoenix City.
Phoenix City Story. And I know what Greg is saying, and I guess a lot of people didn't live in the world I lived in, didn't know a lot of this stuff was going on, but just dig up some of the newspapers that happened. I remember shootings up on Calhoun Avenue, where a big shootout happened up there. A shootout over on West Fifth Avenue, car lot right there. The two guys were shooting each other, and one of them had shot his pistol 5 times, and the guy said, "Shoot it one more time, and I'm going to come in there after you." Well, he didn't have another one to shoot. He only kept 5 bullets in that pistol for safety reasons. So it saved him that night. And those things were, I mean, if you go, I guess you go to the library and find a lot of these stories that I'm talking about that happened back in the day.
Well, Mitchum, we're very close to being out of time, but I got to say, listening to you is, and I'm a reader, but listening to you is as good as reading about it, or better.
I appreciate it, guys.
I think we've got a lot left to talk about, but for folks who want to hear more right away, you need to check out the Mitchum podcast. But thank you for being with us again. And we will see you and see all of y'all out there again soon on Community Watch. Bye now and take care.